Hey everybody, Elizabeth Nader here with the Nader Narrative. I am so excited to be back with you tonight. Honored to be interviewing really an amazing woman, Brigitte Gabriel. Brigitte, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much. I am so honored and delighted to be with you.
Well, you know what? I've been watching you for years, and you are impressive. You are a patriot. You fight for all the things that we care about in this country. So I couldn't be more excited to have you here. And so many people, of course, recognize you, but just in case they're younger than me, I'll remind them you're a national security analyst and really expert, best-selling author. You have a new book we're going to talk about, as well as the chairwoman of Act for America. Your best-selling book, also the new one, Rise, which I have to tell you, the amount of work you put into this, unbelievable, really so incredibly intelligent. So we'll get into that book in a minute. But Brigitte, you hail originally from Lebanon, and your story for me is very personal. I happen to be married to a Lebanese immigrant. But really what you went through as a child formed really what you're doing, your purpose and your calling in this world and the difference you have made. So before we really dig into the book, and so many things that are going on right now in America, so much for us to hear from you about, let's go into your childhood. Let's tell people and remind them about your story and what you experienced as a young girl.
Well, you know what they say, you are a product of your environment. And we as adults, no matter what we do, no matter what profession we go into, no matter how we progress and grow in wisdom as well as in age, only when we get to a certain point of adulthood, we look back and realize that everything we went through in life made us who we are today.
Amen.
It is the drive that drives us, for either good or bad, to do the things that we do. In my case, I am so fortunate that I understood very early on that in order for evil to dwell, good people had to sit down and do nothing. Right. And I learned very early on that evil dwells when people do nothing. And I understand what happens when people turn a blind eye to evil, thinking it's not going to happen to me. It's all the way over there in Lebanon. Oh, let them all kill each other and let God sort it out. Who cares?
Right.
Well, the world has become so small that no matter what happens somewhere else in the world affects all of us.
Right.
In my case, I was born and raised in Lebanon, and most people don't realize that Lebanon used to be the only majority Christian country in the Middle East.
Right.
We were open-minded, we were fair, we were tolerant, we were multicultural.
Right.
We prided ourselves on our multiculturalism. We had open border policy. We welcomed everyone into our country because we wanted to share with them the westernization we had created in the heart of the Middle East. People used to send their children to study in our universities because we had built the best universities in the Middle East.
Yes.
They stayed and worked in our economy because we had built the best economy in the Middle East, even though we did not have any oil. Beirut became the Paris of the Middle East.
Yes.
Unfortunately, all that began to change as a radical element took control of the country. And when we started seeing an influx of Palestinian refugees coming into the country and us welcoming them in and taking them in, we realized we are importing people that had no shared value with us. They used our open-mindedness and our tolerance to destroy our democracy.
Right.
My 9/11 happened to me in 1975 when radical Islamists blew up my home, bringing it down, burying me under the rubble wounded. I ended up in a hospital for 2.5 months. And later ended up living in a bomb shelter underground in an 8x10 room without electricity, without water, and very little food. And that's where I lived for 7 years of my life, from the age of 10 till the age of 17, robbed of my youth, crawling under the bombs to dig out grass and dandelion because it was the only greenery we had to eat. I had to crawl under snipers' bullets to a nearby spring to get some water.
Wow.
And every time we left our bomb shelter, my mother and I, to get some water, we would say our last goodbyes because we did not know if we're going to come back alive or dead just to get a drink of water. And This was my existence. This is how I grew up. People ask me, how did you get your education? And I say to them, remember, do you watch those tanks on TV with the big cannon in the front? You know, those
Right.
big tanks on, on metal, what you
Yeah.
call it,
Treads.
chains.
Yeah.
You can put 18 children inside that tank. Many days I commuted to school to or from in one of those tanks, being
Amazing.
picked up to school. And so it does something to you when you go through these experiences. I was fortunate enough to survive the war and end up moving to Israel, working in Israel as news anchor for World News in the 80s.
Right.
And that's where I met an American war correspondent who was working there as a journalist, got married, and that's how I ended up in the United States by marriage.
Right, which is a whole nother thing. But it's such a great story. But now let's talk about Lebanon a little bit more, because people don't realize it's not as though you grew up in a situation that was dire. You grew up with chauffeurs, with maids. I know the kind of lifestyle you grew up in. All of a sudden you went from that lifestyle to literally running to the tanks to try to go to school, to try hoping you would survive until the next day. This was a result of a country who didn't really keep things in check as related to immigration, who wasn't focused on and concerned about keeping their own history and their own identity. And it's, I believe, a cautionary tale. And if people want to read about it, by the way, your book, Because They Hate, really is amazing.
Book.
Yes,
exactly. My first book details my life story. And it's like you said, I'm an only child to a Lebanese businessman. I was born into privilege.
Right.
We did have a live-in maid. I did have a chauffeur to drive me to school. I was the apple of my parents' eyes. We lived the good life.
Yeah.
My father, when the war started in Lebanon, 2 days before the bombing of my home, he took all his money out of the bank in Beirut, wanting to bring us to America because he was afraid for our life. He can see what was happening in Lebanon. And 2 days later, my father took his money in banknotes. 2 days later, our house was bombed and my father's money was burned to ashes. We went from a chauffeur who drove me to school and a live-in maid to eating grass to live. My father became deaf. We lost our home. We lost our money. And I went from a life of privilege to a life of poverty. My parents had to sell their teeth, to sell the gold filling in their teeth so I can continue my education. And so when I look, 9/11 in America was a defining moment for the United States. When you hear about the stories of these big companies, that their life was destroyed in the World Trade Center, that most of their employees were dead, families, thousands of them, that their life was completely changed. I can relate. I know what happens overnight when we think we have it all and we are living, this will never happen in America. I mean, look, I remember working on freedom of speech issues back in 2008, passing free speech legislation. And people thought we were crazy. I was crazy because in America, we will never lose our freedom of speech. We don't have to worry about these things in America. Look where we are now. And it didn't take 30 years. It took 10 years. And look what we're talking about right now. So I know what happens.
You do know what happens. And, your story is so crucial. And it's amazing, I think, how that became part of your purpose. And you're in this bomb shelter. And when you read this, I just can't even imagine. And you're watching this little TV that's powered by, I think, a car battery, you said, and you're seeing these shows. And I got a kick out of that because I remember my husband saying he saw the same shows, the American shows, the Dallas, the Little House on the Prairie. And you're imagining this country that we have is such a gift and the opportunities, and you want to project you and your family there, and you end up coming here and you end up becoming a citizen. So now you have this.
The last line in my book, Because They Hate, the last line in the book is America the Dream that became my address. Beautiful. And very few people can say that statement.
It's beautiful. And it was your dream. And I mean, seven years in a bunker looking at this thinking, I'm going to get out of this alive. And someday I'll get there. You had that sense of purpose. So it's no surprise that you are committed to really fighting for and protecting the values that you see in America. And I know this, you've made this your life's work. So we want to kind of talk about where we've come as a nation, because while you have been fighting for us for years, we are probably in the most precarious position we have ever been? So first, I want you to talk about your organization, because your organization isn't just about going around and speaking and writing books. You give people tools and encourage them to make change. And you guys have been behind a lot of bills that have been passed. So tell us about ACT.
Well, I founded Act for America right after 9/11 because I wanted to educate millions of uninformed Americans about the threat of terrorism to world peace and our national security. And at that time, it was radical Islamic terrorism, because at that time, Antifa did not exist. Black Lives Matter did not exist.
Right.
MS-13 gangs were not roaming our streets the way they are today. China wasn't the power that it is today. Iran was not developing nuclear weapon. The world today, in just 20 years, is so different. So I started Act for America because I wanted to educate and mobilize citizens to make a difference. And I am so proud to tell you, well, before I start, so I started speaking and educating between 2002 until 2007.
Right.
And I realized we can educate until the cows come home. Nothing is going to change. Education is important, but education without action is insufficient. Education must be coupled with action.
Amen.
And that's when I launched our chapter network nationwide, Act for America, our lobbying arm. And we started mobilizing groups nationwide. And I'm proud to tell you that Act for America today has 1.6 million members. We have helped pass 110 bills on the federal level and on the state level to protect the country.
Right.
And lately, the Georgia bill, we were behind, we played a major part in helping pass that bill. The Arizona bills, election integrity bills. Right now, we are working on election integrity bills in 20 states across America.
Wow.
And I'm going to give a message of hope. You know, we launched our chapter network in 2008, right when Obama got elected. And people will say to me, Brigitte, it's over. The country is done. We're not going to be able to do anything. Because remember, at that time in 2008, the Democrats won the House, they won the Senate, and they won the presidency. So we knew we couldn't do much on the federal level like now. We knew we have to do it on the state level. And under Obama, we were able to pass over 70 bills on the state level to protect the country. We basically bypassed Washington, D.C. and Congress. Right now, we are in the same situation. Same thing. So there is hope. So we are able to do a lot of work. If you are an activist out there watching us right now and you are frustrated and you think it's over, we are never going to be able to recover. We've been there, done that. I've heard that before when Obama got elected. Not only Obama got elected and we were able to pass bills, but if it wasn't for Obama, we would not have had President Trump. So rest assured, the best is yet to come. Better things are happening. Actually, great things are happening right now. And I can tell you that with confidence. Put a smile on your face, because we are passing bills and we are changing things, and every patriot can play a part in making a difference.
Well, we need to hear that. I love your energy. And there's so many people who are going to watch this video who are fighting on the local level, on the state level, because we do feel like Washington is not an option anymore. One of the great things about your book and about your organization, and again, guys, this book right here, it's called Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, which of course we know our country was built on. But the book is full of ideas for people to act. And this is the whole point, right? Not just you educate, but specific things you can do, call, email, get to know your legislators. These are all the things that we're doing on the local level. But really, Brigitte, if we do those things at the smallest level, it builds up to change eventually, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, what makes my book Rise unique is I not only educate, because people need to understand what we're facing. But at the end of every chapter, I have a section called Rise Up and Act. 3 things you can do under 10 minutes that will make a difference for the country. People don't realize how easy it is to be an activist. You can be a keyboard activist. You don't need to go out and march on the streets. If you don't want to go march on the streets, you don't want to go meet with your elected official, fine. We make it so easy for you. And this is why I direct people to go to our website, actforamerica.org, actforamerica.org. And we named the organization Act for America. Now, think about America, not hope for America, not pray for America. You can do all that, and you should. But without taking action, nothing happens. Actforamerica.org. So when you go to our website and you sign up to get our emails and action alerts, We send, for example, every week we send 3 things you can do under 10 minutes, and you can do them sitting in your pajamas, sipping your cup of coffee with the click of a button on your computer.
I love it.
I share some of that
Yeah.
in the book to drive people to the website to be able to sign up. And now we are mobilizing groups nationwide. If you want to start a group in your community, no matter where you're listening to us right now, and no matter what state, start a group in your community. Go to our website, actforamerica.org, and click Get Involved. We will train you. We will mentor you. We will provide you with the tools to make you the most effective activist in your community, so you can be a voice affecting your community and our nation.
We need this so much right now. Your voice is so relevant. And you for years have talked about the loss of our national identity and really the threat to all of that. No, we didn't know we would be facing all this. It's crazy what's going on in 2021, but with the most pressure comes the most opportunity. So I'm with you spiritually on that. I do think we have great opportunity here. But I want to back into something a little bit, because it's one of your most famous speeches, and it's important because you're talking about the irrelevance of the majority. And really, in a way, yeah, 2014, I think it was June 16th, actually, I remember, because that's my birthday, and I will never forget this speech you made. I don't know, it's one of those things that I wanted to stand up and cheer. I know you got probably a lot of praise and probably a lot of attacks for it, as you always do, because you're outspoken and you speak for truth. But I want you to talk about that particular conversation you had at the Benghazi Forum, because it was really something that is still relevant today, and we forget about the irrelevance of the majority. Will you explain that to the listeners?
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I served on the Benghazi Accountability Committee,
right,
because we wanted to hold elected officials accountable. We wanted people to speak about how can 4 Americans die at the embassy in Benghazi and nobody was held accountable.
Right.
Nobody went to jail.
Right.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So in that hearing, I was sitting on a committee, on a panel, and the panel discussing this. We had an open panel one afternoon at the Heritage Foundation, and one lady, a Muslim woman, an activist, acted as a student. She's not a student. She was a lawyer. She was a professional student who uses that platform to say, I'm a student, who asked me one question. Well, how can you talk about, how can you paint a majority of the Muslim population as radicals? Which, by the way, we never even mentioned Muslims.
Yeah.
We were not even talking about that. We were just talking about government accountability.
Right.
And I answered her and I said, I'm glad you asked this question, because when you look at the lessons of history, it was always the radical, it's the radical minority that causes mayhem. It is the radical minority that kills people. It's the peaceful majority were irrelevant. And I said, when you look at the lessons of history, when you look at Russia, for example, most Russians were peaceful, yet Russia was able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Nazi Germany, for example, most Nazis were peaceful, yet the Nazis were able to drive the whole world into war. And as a result, 14 million people died in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at communist China, most Chinese were peaceful, yet the communist China was able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Japan, most Japanese were peaceful, but Japan was able to slaughter its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed by bayonets and shovels. So today, when you look around us and you see Antifa, I'm not going to even talk about radical Islamic terrorism at this point, because the mind of the nation is on what's happening right now with Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the race wars that the Chinese, the communists are trying to create to divide America. This is not coming from within the U.S. We always had whites and blacks in America. The country elected a black president. We went beyond. We solved our racial issues. This is international interference to topple democracies worldwide. And we're not just talking about America now, because Antifa is active in Europe as well. When you look at the radicals right now causing mayhem on the streets, you know, the Black Lives Matter, the Antifa, all these socialists who are promoting socialism and dividing the country. The radical minority is the one that's causing the problem. It's not all the Black community.
No.
As a matter of fact, there's a lot of Black people in the Black community who do not want their communities burned.
That's right.
It is their areas that are being burned. This is creating divide in the country. So for all our lessons of reasons, it's always the radical minority that drives the agenda. The peaceful majority are irrelevant.
That's right.
And that's why I always say, Elizabeth, that 2% of the passionate will always overrule the 98% indifferent.
Yeah.
This is such an important line I want people to remember. This is why we need the passionate to stand up and fight. And I'm not interested in people say to me, oh, Brigitte, but you're preaching to the choir. That's exactly who I want to talk to.
Right.
I'm interested in talking to the other people.
Yes.
Because when you want something done in the church or the synagogue or the mosque or whatever, it's the choir who shows up to clean the church.
Yeah.
It's the choir who visits you in the hospital when you are sick. It's the choir that cooks your food. It's the choir that cleans the garden. When you need something done, it is the choir you need to get up to take action.
Yeah.
So those of you who are listening to me right now, I know if you were not as passionate as I am and Elizabeth is, you would not be with us right now.
That's right.
All we need is all of us to come together and work together and network together and speak authoritatively and with passion to be able to take our country back.
Well, you must have read my mind because I picked the quote out of the book to read exactly what you just said. I'm going to read your quote back to you. You just said it, but I'm going to read the full thing. Remember, 2% of the passionate will always rule 98% of the indifferent. Choose to be part of the 2% of trailblazers like our nation's founders and turn your passion, your drive, and your desire for change into an unstoppable force. This is really the amazing part of your message because, you get attacked for saying we need to be careful for extreme forces. And of course we do. And you say, no, guys, the peaceful majorities are irrelevant. But now we're turning that around to say, do you feel alone? You feel like you're only the 2%? Guess what? If you speak up, if you do the kind of things that Brigitte, you help us understand and all the actions we can take locally and on the state level, I absolutely believe I'm with you that we can make a difference. Now, let's talk about something, though, that feels kind of looming out there. And I want you to talk about the border because you have, again, this special not only insight, but experience and all of that with a nation changing based on loose borders. So we've got to talk about the border crisis. Finally, President Biden is calling it a crisis. What really is our risk, Brigitte? Paint that picture for people. Why do we need to get this under control?
We need to get it under control because we are importing an element to our society that's not only siphoning basically the future of our children economically. We can barely take care of our own. Look at what all these forces that are coming into the country are siphoning the millions and billions of dollars they're taking out of our country. Just in medical costs, welfare. I mean, look right now how vulnerable we are that our National Guard was basically at the border changing diapers and babysitting. What happens if we are attacked as a nation by a third country and our National Guard is sitting at the border changing diaper? Our military, our National Guard is so overspread, so thin right now that we are paying a cost dearly. Not only for the people who are coming here who are taking away financial resources from our own people and our own future generations, but look at the threat that's coming. We have people who are coming to the United States who have no intention of becoming a part of America. Right. They are coming here to collect a paycheck that they can send it home to their country instead of improving their country. They're coming to America and they have no intention in learning English. Look, I know people who have been in this country for over 20 years who are Hispanic. They still can't speak English.
Right.
It's mind-boggling to me. Where is the assimilation? And we are not enforcing that. It's a huge difference between when I immigrated to America and what's happening now. Look, when I came to America, I immigrated here in 1989, 30 years ago. So we're not talking ancient history.
Right.
When I came to America, I paid for my own airline ticket. I went and got a visa from the embassy. I hired my own attorneys to do my paperwork. I went and took all the blood tests and medical tests required to make sure I'm not bringing tuberculosis into the country or leprosy into the country. It was required, and I gladly did it. It was the price I needed to pay to become an American. And then once I got my green card, I had to study a 2-inch thick book about the from the daughters of the American Revolution,
Right.
about America's history,
Yeah.
our Constitution, our judicial system, our Bill of Rights. And I had to take an exam, a written exam as well as a verbal exam in English, and
Right.
pass both in order for me to become an American.
Right.
So by the time I became an American, Elizabeth, I knew more about America and its history than my own American-born husband did. So today we have a whole army of immigrants,
Yeah.
of migrants, I don't want to call them immigrants,
Right.
of migrants who are coming into our country, who do not know anything about our history, have no interest in learning about their history. They're not being forced to learn our history. Heck, we're not even teaching our own children in
That's
our
right.
own public schools about our history.
That's right.
Our own kids don't understand our history.
That's right.
So we need to literally reshape our country and clean it from the top down and from the bottom up. And that's where citizen activism becomes so important.
Absolutely.
And I have a tip for our listeners. You know, a lot of people tell me, what is my voice going to count? I'm only one. My congressman needs to hear from 40 to 50,000 people before they act. Wrong. I talk to elected officials all the time. And I ask them, how many people do you need to hear from to make an issue your top priority?
Yeah.
And you'll be shocked. On the federal level, 40 to 50 people about one issue. That's it.
Excellent.
40 to 50 people. Now,
Right.
I know there are more than 40 people watching this show.
Right now. Yes, absolutely.
Here is the science behind the numbers. They believe one voice, one person who makes a phone call, writes a letter, or sends an email represents 1,000 couch potatoes who feel the same way, but are too lazy to call or write an email, but they vote on election day.
Yes.
That translates to 40 to 50,000 voters on election day.
Right.
Know your power.
Right.
Know your influence. Don't ever say, what is my voice going to do? What is this phone call going to do to my lefty Democrat member of Congress? Your voice is so important. And here's another reason why you need to call your Democratic members of Congress, because they need cover. They need to be reelected. Remember, they run for election every 2 years.
Right.
They need to get reelected. So if they hear a lot from their constituent that this issue is a problem, that gives them cover to go to leadership, to go to Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and say, hey, I'm going to lose my seat in 2 years. If I vote with you, you need to lay off this issue, or at least let me just be neutral.
Yeah.
Your voice matters.
So that's great advice, because a lot of times I think we avoid calling them, you know, we're in a blue state here in New Jersey, and sometimes it feels like, well, what's the point? But you're absolutely right. We keep the pressure on. We need to let them know what people are thinking, and they are. Listen, 2022, I don't know about you. I'm pretty excited about it. Do you have any predictions?
I am excited about it. You know what? Because the American giant has awakened.
Yeah.
And right now, the Republicans who control most states, at least 30, remember, they control everything. We are able to work and pass election integrity bills. Yeah. And remember, it is the states who decided to use Dominion machines.
Right.
And you know, so it's the state level where you can make a difference. And I'm really excited. And I'm excited to see people rising, really, people becoming more engaged, more active. And again, you make those phone calls to your Democratic members of Congress as well as your Republican members of Congress, and make them more than once. And here's why. You know, on our side, Elizabeth, they call their member of Congress one time and they say, okay, I called them. That's it. And that's only to the Republicans.
Right.
What do the Democrats do? The Democrats not only call their member of Congress, but they call the Republican representative 3 times a week, 5 times a week. They make them feel the heat. And that's why our side cowers down. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm being bombarded. They shy away from the fight. So we need to fight as hard and as passionate as our enemies do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. We need to be smarter than they are. And we do have this opportunity, and it is a state fight. And the genius of this country is that it swings, and we have the chance now to swing in the other direction. I know you love your home country, of course, but they've never really recovered from what happened. And Lebanon is a cautionary tale, one of the most beautiful places in the world, some of the most amazing people in the world, but really a sad tale of what happens when you're not really careful about the gift you've been given. We've been given a gift here in America. You appreciate it. We all listening appreciate it. So I want you to tell people where to go to get more information about ACT, and they can contribute as well, and to support the organization and the work that you're doing. So give that to them again so they can go there after this interview and get involved.
Thank you so much. You can go to actforamerica.org, actfor, America.org. Get involved, sign up to become an activist, sign up to start a group, and stand with us financially if you are able.
Yeah.
We need you engaged and we need your support. We're working on state bills nationwide right now. We have over 565 groups nationwide working. We have 133,000 activists. We are so prepared to fight for 2022 and beyond. We need you in this fight. We need to invest in grassroots movements,
Yes.
not just elected officials, not just think tank, not just student organizations. We need the grassroots. That's where the battle is won. And your donation is tax deductible. We are a 501c3 organization, and we appreciate you more than words could ever express.
That's great. For once, we can give political money that's tax deductible.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Because we educate.
Yes.
So we don't tell you who to vote for.
Right.
We educate you.
Right.
So when you educate, your money is going as a tax deductible, which you cannot do that with any elected official. So we want to engage. We want to inform. We are taking the nation by storm. We are an umbrella organization with many groups underneath us. We are bringing groups that started by itself right in the last 6 months during the election, that now do not know what to do. They started this group. They put people together. Don't let your group just fall apart. Come under our umbrella. We will train you. We will mentor you. We will get you going in your community. And we will connect you to groups like you nationwide, so you can speak as one megaphone instead of a small group in your community.
I love it. We need to do it every state, every town. So everybody go to the website, get the book. I'm telling you, this book is amazing, and it's encouraging, and it's full of good information you can use when you reach out to your legislators. I got to tell you, Brigitte, you're a hero. You are a patriot.
Thank you.
I admire you so much, and so many people do. We were looking forward to talking to you tonight. Thank you for all of your time. I want to do something with you in the future. We'll talk about that, but we will continue to watch you, support you, fight alongside of you, because the future is bright. America is not done. As long as we're standing and Brigitte is standing, I know she's going to fight next to us. Brigitte, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being with you.
Awesome. Guys, we will see you next week. Have a good night.